Hi, in tonight's Home Revision tutorial, I'm going to try to make a video game quick as I can, a little shooter game, space shooter game. So I had Paint. I just used Microsoft Paint over here, and I'm just drawing a picture of the idea of what I have for the game. Now I got like Unity opened up. It's a brand new project. There's nothing in here yet. This is Unity 6, and let's start off. Let me start off, and I add the floor. Okay, so I'm going to have it be a cube. Then I'm going to bring it down by 1 on the Y position. And what I'll do is I'll scale it out on the X to go to the sides of the screen. And I'll scale it on the Z to really stretch it out into the horizon. So what do I have this here at 88? Okay, so say I make it 90. And the middle's right there. I'll just move up the Z a little bit so the floor looks like it's coming from off in the horizon. Okay, and I'll call this a floor. Floor. Enter. And the floor is not going to move, so I'll say it's static. Okay, file, save. Next, I'll make the player. So the player is going to be a 3D object. It's going to be a cube. And let me just move it down to the position where I'm going to play from, probably here, and move back and forth. And since I move back and forth here, and I ain't going to be able to move past the camera's viewpoint, let me just adjust the floor a little bit and shrink it down there. So when I move back and forth, it does stay on the same, level. So now back to here, the cube, and I'll name it player, because this is going to be my player. Player, let's make a script form. Create a mono behavior script, and this script is going to control the player. Now I'll open it up. And the first thing I want to do in the player script is I want to move the player to the left and the right. And let me just rip that out. And I start with a public float for the move speed of the player. And I'll by default it to 10. Then I'll have an update function. So I'll just type the word update and then press enter, and then IntelliSense kind of staples out the function. Update is a method of mono behavior, which my player script derives from. That's where it gets update. And here, I'll do some read the input. If input.getKey, key code.left arrow, then I'll move the player to the left. This dot transform dot translate to the left is vector 3 dot left. That's the direction of left. And the move speed makes me faster than by 1. And then time dot delta time. Time dot delta time, so it moves at the same speed no matter what your computer speed is. Excuse me. Else if input dot get key is key code right arrow equals true, then I'll move to the right. This dot transform dot translate vector 3 dot right times move speed times time delta time. So now this should make the player move to the left and to the right. Let me put this script on the player and just test it out. So here's my player, here's my script. I drag and drop the script on there, and I'll be able to move to the left and the right. Let me press play. Let me make sure that the camera is at the same view as my scene. So I'm going to select the camera and then go game object, align with view. That way in the game, the camera is the same angle. Ooh, look, the player. First, let's make sure the player moves. Then maybe I'll add a material because the colors are, it's kind of hard to see. Okay, so here we are. I can move to the left and I can move to the right. And I can move right off the floor. So I want to stop movement like right at the edge of the camera's view. So that's one more thing I want to do. Also, the player is going to be collidable with objects. So let me add some physics objects. A physics rigid body. And let me move that up above the script. So I have a collider and I have a rigid body. Now I could do collisions with the player. Now collisions will be doable with the player. And then it's kind of hard to see gray on gray, right? So let me just make a materials folder and make a material. The materials don't have to go in a folder called materials. I'm just keeping everything organized. And now I create a material, and I'll call this red because, ooh, it's going to be red. Actually, I'm going to make my player blue. Okay, layer. I'll make my player blue, so just rename this to blue. And then I'm going to put this color on my player. Pink. Now what I want to do is I want to limit the movement so it doesn't go off camera, it doesn't go off the screen. So I'm going to do I'll write some code in the player script. Okay, after the controls for moving, I'm going to clamp position to the camera. That's going to be a function I'm going to write. That's why there's a red squiggly right now. And now here I'll write the function. Private void clamp position to camera. So first thing I'm gonna have to convert to camera coordinates. Then I'll have to figure out the clamp values, and then I'll have to convert back to world coordinates. Convert to camera. It's basically something like this. I'm gonna have a vector 3. That's gonna be my camera's coordinates. So what I'll do is I'll use the camera itself. The camera main is the camera in the scene, and I'll use the world to viewport point. So it's going to convert from the scene coordinates to the viewport coordinates of the camera. And what do I convert? I convert the position of my game object. Then I got to figure out the clamp. So with the camera coordinates converted, now the coordinates, only thing that matters is the x and the y, because the camera is a 2D thing. So on the x coordinate, I clamp it down. I clamp down whatever the camera x coordinate is. It goes from 0 to 1 on the x, 0 to 1 on the x, and it goes from 0 to 1 on the y. But on the x, I'm going to clamp it down to 0.05, so you can still see my thing. And then on the other side, 0.95. So instead of all the way to 0 and 1, I'm going to clamp down to 0.5 and 0.95 on the x. Then I got to convert back. So this will convert back. So now I'll apply that clamped positioning to my game object. And this should clamp the position so I don't go off the camera. So let's see if that works. Save the script, go back to Unity real fast here, play, and I move, and I can't go past there, and I move, and I can't go past there. Good. So that clamping worked to keep me in the view of the camera. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to be able to shoot. So let's go ahead and make a new game object, 3D object. I'll just use the cube. Let me pull it back a little bit. I'll probably make it the same color as the player, the shot. But now I'll make this cube look a little bit more like a shot. So I'll say like 0.25. So this is going to be like my shot object. And it's going to need a rigid body too, because I want it to detect collisions. So physics, rigid body. And it's going to be above the ground. I don't want it to use gravity. It'll drop to the floor. I want it to stay above the floor. Okay. The shot is going to need a script. So let's create a script. Behavior script, and this is a shot for the player. I may make shots for the enemy, so I'll make a script called player shot. Enter. And this script, let's name this player shot in the scene. And now I'll just drag and drop player shot script onto player shot game object, and here we have it. Now let's go and write the script. We got this out. So same thing. When you shoot, its job is to move forward when you shoot, right? So let's get a move speed, public, float, move speed. And let's say for the shot, we're going to move fast, like at 40. And then in the update, type update and enter. In the update, we're just going to keep moving forward. This transform translate, and it's going to be vector 3 forward times the move speed times time delta time. Okay, that should keep the shot moving forward forever. Oh, now my here my scene, the view kind of got off target. If I want to put it back, I could just select the camera, game object. Instead of align with view, align view to selected. Bam. Alright, let me press play. And the shot just goes off in the distance. Okay, so it moves forward forever, but I don't want it to keep moving forward forever. I just want it to move forward for like 1 second. Like I shoot and then the shot turns off by itself. So if the shot's going to turn off, that means it could be on or off. So I'm going to make a variable, public bool inactive shot. So at first, the shot is going to be inactive, true. And then over here in the update, it's only going to move if the shot is active. If inactive shot equals false, then go ahead and, do all the stuff with moving the shot. Okay, do I have my parentheses right? Nope, I don't. I'm missing one there. There we go. Fix that. Close, and close. What is going to control if the shot is inactive or not? Let's make 2 functions here. Let's make a public function, public void activate shot. Yeah, I know I spelled something wrong here. Public bool, okay? Activate shot. And in the activate for the shot, we're going to give it a vector 3 position to activate from, and we're going to give it a quaternion rotation to activate from. Then in this activate thing, we will say inactive shot is false. And we'll probably want to render the shot, and we're probably going to want to turn on the colliders for the shot. And then the shot has a rigid body, so we're probably going to want to set the rigid body velocities to 0, so there's no velocities moving it. And what else would we want to do here? Well, we'll probably want to do more, but let's start with that in the activate shot. And wait, it's not going to return a bool. It's going to return nothing at all. So to render, we need a renderer. So up here we say private renderer renderer, rend equals null. Then we can say private collider, CLDR equals null. So there's like box colliders, mesh colliders, sphere colliders, but all those different type of colliders, the base class is collider. So I'll just say collider. That way, whatever kind of colliders attach, it works. And I want private rigid body, RB equals null. Okay, now these three things, when the game object is created, it's going to be getting created from pooling and spawning. I'm going to make a pool and I'm going to spawn them. So sometimes I notice the start function doesn't call right away because the first thing that may be called in the script is the activate shot. So I'm going to do is I'm going to make properties for these three things, right? And the way to make a property in C# is you just say something like this: private renderer, my renderer, don't put any parentheses. See, now it wants to do a get. Okay, so in my get function, I'm going to return a rigid body. And in here, I'll say if rend equals null, then I'll do a get for the rend. Rend equals this dot get component renderer, return rend. See, so it'll get the renderer if it's not set. I'll do the same thing. Private collider, my collider, get, enter, if collider equals null, then collider equals this component get collider, and return collider. And the last one I have is the rigid body, private rigid body, my rigid body, get if RB equals null, then RB equals this dot get component rigid body, and return RB. All right, so now in activate shot, I want to render, right? So what I'm going to do is my renderer dot enabled equals true. And then another thing, my collider dot enabled equals true. And now for the rigid body, make sure there's no physics getting applied from my rigid body dot linear velocity equals 0. And then my rigid body dot angular velocity equals vector 3.0. Okay, then I'm gonna have a deactivate shot, public void. Deactivate. I know when I activate the shot, I only want the shot to exist for like 1 second, but let's probably make the time that it exists for a variable. So public float lifetime of the shot, 1 second. Okay, then down here, enumerator deactivate shot. I'm gonna have a delay, how long it waits. And what I'm gonna do is in the activate shot, right when the shot gets fired, I'm gonna set that it's gonna die. Start coroutine, deactivate shot. And the delay is gonna be the lifetime value. All right, over here I have the activate shot. It doesn't know what enumerator is, so let me hold my mouse over it, and then the pop-up says show potential fixes, and I could click that, and it's because it doesn't have using systems.collections. So I double-click that, and it adds using systems collections for me. Visual Studio does that. Deactivate also has a squiggly, and that's because I haven't returned any values yet. I think I forgot something here. In activate shot, I activate it. I show it, I turn the colliders on, I turn up the velocity. I didn't set the position of the freaking shot. This dot transform dot position equals position, and this dot transform dot rotation equals rotation. Now back to the deactivate shot. First, I want to hold. When I say start coroutine, it starts its own thread. The game is still playing, but this deactivate function it's in its own thread. It's in its own timeline, and it's going to wait at this line here for the delay amount of seconds. Then it'll finally run. It'll inactivate the shot, turn off the renderer, turn off the collider. Okay, and you know what the hell? I might also make sure that there's nothing, no physics that are moving it. Just stop all those calculations too. So now the way this script is, when the first thing inactive is false, what am I going to use to set inactive to true? So what I'm going to do on the player script here is I'm going to add another command here, and that's the fire command. So if input.get key down, key code dot space, that's going to be my fire button, call a function, fire shot. So let's make that function. Private void fire shot. And in this, I need to create a player shot. So I'm going to create it from a script. So let's turn the player shot into a prefab. So here, just to keep everything organized, let me just make a folder to hold all my prefabs. I can call it whatever you want, but I'm calling it prefabs. Then I'm going to drag and drop the player shot into here, boop, and that turns it into a prefab. Now I can get rid of the shot that's just hanging out here. Bye. On my player script, I'm going to want to tell it what the prefab is. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a public game object. Prefab shot equals null. Define it in the inspector window. See, right here, prefab shot. And I just drag and drop that, bam, right there. So now when I press and I do fire shot, what I want to do is I want to instantiate the prefab shot. And then when I instantiate, I should get back a game object. So game object, g object equals null. Then I want to reference to the script component of the shot. So the script is the player shot script equals null. So when I instantiate, I get a pointer back, g object equals. In the instantiate function, you could tell it who is the parent object. I want to make the shot have a parent. I'm just going to make an empty game object here. I'm going to have a bunch of spawning pools. So I'll make a pools, and then inside the pools, I'm going to create another empty, and I'll call it the player shot pool. And I'm probably going to want to tell my player script what that is too. So public game object player shot pool. And then let's go here and tell it that. So here's the player. And come back here. And there's an error. Invalid expression. Oh, right here. Okay. Player shot pool dot transform is going to be where the shot's going to instantiate. That's why. Okay. So now let me go here. Did I press save? Nope, there's a little star. Press save. Go back to Unity and just drag and drop the player shot pool. Okay, drag and drop that. Bingo. Now I got the player shot prefab and the player shot pool. So I use the prefab here when I instantiate. I use a shot pool so it becomes a child of this. Now I need a pointer to the script. So the script is going to equal g object get component player shot. That'll give me a pointer to the script. And then on the script, I can call activate shot, ta-da, which will have the shot firing off. Oops, but I need to give it the position and which way to point. All right, now I think I got enough code to run. Okay, so here's my player script. I'm moving back and forth. I press the fire button, and it does fire shot. And fire shot, it creates a game object in the scene. Then it gets the script for it, and it calls activate shot. In the player shot script, activate shot is going to activate the shot. It's going to show it, put the collider on, make sure there's no rigid body physics applied to it, set the position to what it said over here, and with it active, it's going to start moving. It's going to keep moving and moving and moving, but this start coroutine just got called. It's only going to be 1 second. It's going to wait here for 1 second as the shot's moving forward, and then boop, the shot's going to turn off. Let's press play, and every time I press a space bar, a shot should get instantiated. So I can move back and forth. I press a space bar, and a shot got instantiated, but it's getting instantiated in the middle. It's not getting instantiated in front of my game object, so there's some kind of problem. Plus over here, there is some kind of error. There is no rigid body attached to the player shot clone. Oh, okay. On the prefab, I forgot to add the rigid body, I think. So let me double click on the prefab. Now I'm editing just the prefab. You see how everything changed here? Now on the prefab, let me add a rigid body, physics, rigid body. And I'm going to turn off gravity so the shot doesn't fall on the floor. Go back to the scene. Now press play. Because the player shot object didn't have a rigid body, there was an error. So all the activate shot code didn't run. Now, if I press, whoa, see that? Oh, I was pressing a lot of times and the shots were like curving off. If I press fast, and also I was kind of going off. You see, I'm not straight anymore. That's because the player shot and the player are colliding with each other. And when they collide with each other, they kind of move each other. We don't want those two things to collide with each other. So let's use layering. Let's put the player on a layer and the player shot on a layer. So the player is on the layer player. And the player shot, we're going to put on the layer player shot. You may click layer and you may not see these words here. If they're not there, you just have to click add layer, and then you could type in extra stuff in here. And then those are the way you make new layers defined. And then on the game object, you set the layer. So I pick the prefab, and I say, this is on the player shot layer. So there's two things I want to do. One, I don't want the shots to collide with themselves. And I'll say physics.ignore layer collision between the player shot layer, which is what number? Player shot is 6. Ignore collisions between 6 and 6. And then on the player script, in its start, physics.ignore layer collision between 6 and what? Between 6 and 9. 6 and 9. So here we go. Go back to the scene view, press play. Now I move back and forth. Yeah, I can shoot all I want. And the only thing is every time I shoot, it's making another game object. See that? If I keep playing this game for like a half an hour, there's going to be a million of these guys. I don't want a million of these guys. That's overload of resources, loss of memory. So what I want to do is I want to make a pool. I want to see if there's any shots in here that are inactive, and I'll just reuse that shot instead of making a new one. So I'm going to find my fire shot script over here where it just instantiates. And first I'll look in the pool, then I'll instantiate. Okay, so now I need a bool. Be found. And then I'll only instantiate if be found equals false. Then I'll make a new one. Bing. Okay. Oh, is that? I don't need to make a new shot. No, I don't need to. Cut. Put that in there. Bamp. Okay. Look in the pool. So the pool is all the children of the player shot pool. So for int I equals 0 to I less than player shot pool dot transform dot child count I plus plus. This is going to loop through all the children. If there are no children, there is no loop. And what I first got to do is I got to get the game object. Player shot pool dot transform dot get child at I game object. Then from that, I get the script. And I get the player shot script. Now when I get the script, I can see if script dot inactive shot equals true. Then I can use this shot. Be found will equal true. And break out of the loop because I found a shot. Now what do I got to do? Script dot activate shot. And this dot transform dot position. And this dot transform dot rotation. I think that'll work. Let's try it out. And let's see if the shot pool just keeps increasing or it actually like stops increasing and just only makes shots if it needs one. So I press play, click in the game window. 1, 2, 3. 1, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See, it doesn't keep making them forever. It just makes as many as it takes to fire the shots. That's great. Alright, so that's cool. Now let's make something to shoot at. Let's make an enemy. Right click, game object, 3D object, cube. Everything's a cube right now. The graphics can always be improved later with better models, but right now I'm just making the game mechanics. And let's make a color for the cube, different material. This will be red. And then I'll pick the color red. Okay. And I'll drag and drop red onto my cube. Woohoo! File, save. Okay, let's name this enemy. This is the enemy. And then let's give the enemy a rigid body so it could do collisions, physics, rigid body. And yeah, we'll let it use gravity, it's fine. Because it's on the floor. Now we gotta make a script. So let's make a script, we'll call it enemy. Enemy. And the main job of the script for enemy is to move down the road. It's gonna come on down. Good. Enemy script. Let's drag the enemy script on the enemy. Boom. And now let's edit an enemy script. Double click. Okay, got this out. It's the thing that moves. Public float. Move speed of the enemy is what? What shall it be? The faster, the more challenging the game is going to be. Let's just say 20 for now. Okay, 20. And then in the update function, let's move it. So this dot transform dot translate vector 3 dot forward times the move speed times time dot delta time. Let me turn this enemy around here on the rotation. Just rotate him 180 degrees and you see the forward arrow pointing forward. And let me just kind of position this enemy back here where he's going to really start from back there somewhere. So he's going to keep moving forward forever. So we can also put the thing in there where he stops moving forward right now. Public bool inactivate enemy equals true. He's inactive by default. And then over here we only move if it's active. If inactive is false. Wait, how am I getting messed up? If inactivate. I said inactivate. I think the word is inactive. Rename. Inactive enemy. My English. That means I can move it because it's not inactive. Then I can move it. I can move it. Come on and move it. Now I just need the functions for activate and deactivate. Public void activate, and that will take a vector 3 position and a quaternion rotation. Let me just check my player shot. A lot of stuff, yeah, is going to be similar, which means I need my I need the renderer, collider, and rigid body. Let me just copy that. Copy, paste. I'm doing a copy and pasting, very dangerous. Now in the activate enemy, it could be similar to player shot. So activate blah 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 blah, and then it's not going to start a coroutine. It's going to come off the screen and turn off. Here, the enemy, activate enemy. So when I activate, inactive shot doesn't exist here. It's inactive enemy. So this should work. Something calls activate enemy, and the enemy is going to start moving forward. When's the enemy going to stop moving forward? It's going to stop moving forward on there's a mono behavior event called on became invisible right here. That means the camera, it went out of camera view. Deactivate enemy when you go out of camera view. That's what's going to happen. It's going to deactivate the enemy. So let's make a function for it. Private void deactivate enemy. What are we doing with deactivate? Let's kind of copy from here. This one waited, but the main thing is we have to do these things. And these things look safe to copy to my enemy script. So I'm going to inactivate the shot. Oh, inactivate the enemy. Then I'm going to turn off the renderer, turn off the collider, turn off any physics motions. That should work. So the enemy is going to fly until it gets to an end. Then it's going to disappear. Now that's how the enemy's going to disappear. It gets to the end of the camera view and it disappears. But there's another way the enemy's going to disappear. That's when when it gets hit by a shot. It should also disappear then. Then deactivate enemy should be called, but not from inside the script, maybe from outside. So let me make this public. Here's the enemy. It's going to have to be a prefab, and something is going to have to call activate enemy. So here's the enemy. I'm going to drag and drop it in the prefab folder. Bloop. There's my enemy. Now I need something to spawn enemies So let's make a game object. It could be an empty game object. I just need something to put a script on. But if it's an empty game object, how will I know where I could, create from? Let me rethink this. Delete, delete, delete. Let me make a game object. Game object. I'll just make a cube. And then let me stretch this cube to the, let me stretch it to the ends of the floor. And then let me put this thing way in the back. And let's call this the enemy spawn. And now let's write a script. Create enemy spawner script. And drag and drop it on the enemy spawner. The spawner, it doesn't need a collider. I just need it to reference, like, where do I spawn the enemies from? Let's open up the script. What's its job? It's to spawn enemies randomly on the X of that cube. So I need a min spawn time and a max spawn time. Public min spawn time, and I'll say the minimum is 0.1. And over here, public float max spawn time equals, like, I'll just say 1.2. How do I call for something to spawn every so often? Let's do the start function. I think here what I'll do is I'll start a coroutine, and it's going to call some function I'm going to write called spawner. So it's a coroutine function, so it's like enumerator spawner. It doesn't know what this is yet, so hold my mouse and add the using statement for collections. It's going to be an infinite loop that just keeps going on and on. Inside here, I figure out how long do I wait till I spawn, and it's a random time between these two times. And then here's the wait, to wait that long. And then I'm going to spawn an enemy. So right here, private void spawn enemy. Yeah, so when it spawns an enemy, we're going to have to follow the rules of spawning. Hey, wait. There, fix that. Any red squigglies mean something's wrong. Spawn enemy. So if we're going to spawn, we got to follow the rules of look in a pool or instantiate. Then we need a game object. Then we need a script. The script is going to be the enemy script. Be found equals false. Then I'll do the instantiate. But to instantiate, I'm going to need a prefab. So here, public game object prefab enemy equals null. And then public game object. I have a pool for the player shot pool. I'm going to have an enemy pool. So let me create another empty game object here, and I'll call this the enemy pool. So I'm going to want to know what the enemy pool is. Bing bang, 1 and 2. Okay, save. Now save, and let's go here and define in the inspector window my enemy object. It's still in the scene. Oh, did I make a prefab of the enemy? I did. So get rid of the one that's in there. My enemy spawner. Here's the prefab for the enemy. And the enemy pool, here's enemy pool. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We got the things here. Save. Go back to the script. Let's keep writing. So if be found, this is going to be like player shot a little bit. Where's the thing that's, the thing that spawns for player shot is the player. So it's going to be kind of like this. You look in the pool, or then you instantiate. You look in the pool, or then you instantiate. So here we go. We're doing the dangerous copy and pasting. Copy. And in here, I'm just going to paste. Now I'm going to have to look over every single line. Player shot pool, enemy pool. Let's change everything. Player shot pool, enemy pool. Script is not a player shot, it's the script for enemy. And the script is not inactive shot, it's inactive enemy. Script is not activate shot, it's activate enemy. Instantiate, not a prefab shot, it's a prefab enemy. Not a player shot pool, it's a enemy pool. Not player shot script, it's an enemy script. And not activate shot, it's activate enemy. Ta-da. Now, in the position, we want a random X. And the random X is going to be anywhere along this X of that spawner thing. So we can get the, the bounds of that. So let's make a private bounds variable, bnd. And then in the start, before we start spawning, we're going to get the bound. bnd equals this dot get component renderer dot bounds. Now that we have the bounds object, then over here for the position, we could get a random position in the x vector. 3 random pos is going to equal a new vector. The x is going to be random x, so it's going to be random dot range for the x. Or let me make it easier to read. I have a float. Random x is going to equal random dot range from the bound dot min dot x to the bound dot max dot x. So when we're making this new vector, it's going to use the random x, and then it'll use this dot transform dot position dot y, and this dot transform dot position dot z. So here instead of this, I just have the random one, and here the random one. And now we're going to run it. I mean, we didn't even see the enemy move. We wrote so much code. Let's review. First, we made an enemy, and the enemy moves as long as he's active. It moves forward. And then it moves forward until it becomes invisible. It goes off camera. Then it calls deactivate to, make it stop moving. When you call the script, inactive is already, it's inactive, so something has to activate it. When it gets activated, it turns on the renderer, the collider, blah, 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 the position. Okay? So that's what this does, takes care of movement. Now in the spawner, this thing's running. The game starts, it gets the bounds of the spawner, and then it starts a coroutine spawner. This coroutine just keeps running for the whole time the game's playing. And it just has a, first it just figures out how long to wait before it spawns another enemy. And then spawning the enemy, it follows our spawning routines. The only thing is here I get a random X position. I look in the pool and I spawn, I activate an enemy at a random X position, or I instantiate an enemy at a random X position. This is the code. Let's see if it works. That was a lot of code we typed. Let's press play.
I don't see anything. So that's very disappointing. Something's wrong. If I look at my enemy spawner, wait, is there something? Whoa, there's stuff in the pool. But where are they? They're moving, but where are they? Let me press pause. Let me double click. Oh, it's here somewhere. But where are they? Oh, they're falling down. They're falling down. Let's see. Double click on the enemy spawner. Oh, look, the enemy spawner is just a little bit further, too far back. Okay, so let's move it here. Then the enemy spawner is pointing this way. Let's rotate it to point this way. The things come this way. So maybe that's what the problem was. Oh, I did it while I was in play mode, so I just forgot it. Turn it around and move it forward onto the ground there. File, save, main camera, align view selected. Bam, play. Let's see if that fixes it. It was spawning enemies, but they're all just falling down. So there we go. Ah, here they come. And then they get to the end, and good. So it's not making more of them. It's doing that. Now there's colliders on them. Yep, so I get hit. I do get hit. I am getting hit. Bam, bam. And I can shoot. And the shots. Oh, look at that. The shots are kind of flying around. Some of them. Like going in crazy directions. Whoa! What the heck? That guy got shot up. I don't mind that. That's kind of fun. Alright, so that's what we got. But we got problems with things getting offline and stuff like that, moving off sides. Stop the video for tonight, and I'll continue fixing this tomorrow. Bye-bye.